Before I ask Professor Kua to come back again, maybe let me just share with you a little bit of why we are doing this. Okay, so several years ago, maybe about 2 years ago, we started something which is really an initiative to help support the churches in the area of aging, right? So as we did focus groups, etc., we discovered that many churches, what they did was they had these pastoral visitations. They were very faithful doing that. But imagine, but that's the sum total of all they had in terms of reaching out to the seniors in their own churches and in the community. And then, of course, if you come 3 months later, you pray a prayer for the family. 3 months later, you come, pray a prayer for the family. And then you see the deterioration, and the church doesn't support the families at all through their journey. Then we also discovered there were other churches who were doing all these fantastic activities. Some of them were so advanced. In my thinking, if a person is a stroke patient and then will attend those sessions, the recovery will be marked. If a person with dementia, pre-dementia, I think this is all front-ending support so that we help people not to cross that red line, that professor that you talked about. So Professor is here, coming here to share with us the research that he has done, and how, including some of the non-pharmacological interventions, we can help our congregations not to cross that red line so fast. Okay, so he's going to be sharing with us the second part, how he's going to do it. Professor Kua, thank you.
Okay, I'm glad all of you are back. As I was reading this book, I suddenly remembered I wrote something here on page 27. And I mentioned that some 2,000 years ago, there's a Greek philosopher called Socrates who mentioned that I consider an elderly person like a traveler who's being on a long journey, and I must ask him whether the journey is rough or smooth because I must travel along the same journey. And I also mentioned towards the end that the author, who is a pastor, William I, has in fact outlived Socrates. So that's a wonderful thing about him. I want to press on. There's a lot of things to discuss with all of you about, and although it's we hope you'll be introduced to in your other churches or your friends, and I want to move on to other areas that you can introduce also. So when the research was moving well, we had a lot of friends. I think being a doctor, we cannot just stay in the hospital. That we should move out and to tell people some of the good news, and they all become very good friends. And one of the group of people that came to me was the CEO of the Botanic Gardens. He told me that, we want more people to enjoy the gardens, the parks. And so I said, okay, let us do something. And so what we did was to do a research on the therapeutic gardens. And some of you know it, is used by a lot of seniors. So what we did was to do a randomized control study. And before we started the study, we took the blood of the people. It's not just doing gardening, The reason why we started this was because they invited us for a lunch, and they told us that, we are very happy more people are coming to the Gardens by the Bay. So I told the Botanic Gardens Administration, Gardens by the Bay should also be enjoyed by the seniors at Jurong. They're all the working people, and they are retired now. Can we give them something back? I still also remember some years ago, I was invited to give a lecture at Cambridge University. At the end of the lecture, we were invited for dinner at Fitzwilliam College. Fitzwilliam College is the college of Mr. Lee Kuan Yew. And someone asked me, do you think the success of Singapore is because of one man? So I told him that the success of Singapore is because of the leaders and the people which also includes all of you in this room. Do you agree that you all play a role? Yes, right. So I told the people in the Botanic Gardens, the factory workers in Jurong, they also played a part in it. You know? So they felt a bit guilty. Okay, bring them to Gardens by the Bay. So they say, we'll pay for the bus trip, we'll pay for the entrance, and we'll give them high tea. Wow. So I told the CEO, I'm a researcher. Just one-off, no use. Can you give us some money, and we'll do a study to teach them how to do gardening, and then bring them. In fact, some of them told me, I'd never been to the Botanic Gardens before, you know. Work in the factories, you know. Can you imagine that, you know? So they went over there. So we took the blood of them before the research and the blood after the research to see any change in the immune system. How long? Yeah, so it started about 6 months, minimum 6 months. And the improvement on the immune system, you know, various kind of proteins improve. And the first study in the world, it was published in the top journal of the world called Nature. And the BBC in England heard about it. They sent me a note, can we interview you for BBC, you know. And it's wonderful here in Singapore. You're all doing some biological research that gardening has changed, you know. So here you see that after the first one done at Hort Park, there were about 20 now on the whole island, and this was over at Bishan. So the Minister Gunn, that time his hair was black, you know. Once again, he's still Arthur's good friend, I'm told. And there's also Mr. Desmond Lee. So they all came, and so a lot of people. It's wonderful, and it helps the people. People who are seniors. The garden teach about smell, touch, various things. After this, we thought maybe we should do something for the rainforest. Rainforest, once again, is Professor Tomiko's idea. He told me once during a coffee, he said, do you know that there are only 2 cities in the world with a rainforest in the city? Yeah, Singapore and Rio de Janeiro. So you go to a botanic garden, there's a rainforest down there. You know, I told somebody yesterday, one doctor, that I'm told that in our rainforest in the botanic gardens, there are more than 1,320 species of plants. Compared to when you go to North America, to California, the redwood forest, you travel miles and miles and miles, the same redwood forest. All right. I was invited to give a lecture at Finland. As the plane comes in, and the coniferous forest, miles and miles, the same coniferous forest. You go to a botanic gardens, the rainforest is totally different, you know. And so, so besides walking through it, I told them, why not get one of your researchers to come with us, because it starts early in the morning. Because every time you walk through the forest, you don't know the name of the trees, or even you drive along the road in Singapore, some beautiful trees, only you know the name. So this researcher will tell us this is what tree, oh, that tree is of medicinal value, that is the Tongkat Ali tree, or that's for erectile impotence, various kind of things. So you learn a lot. At the end of the research, we found that not only their mental health improved, their physical health improved, their social health also improved. They can learn about each other. And they begin to love the rainforest because they give them so much pleasure now. You learn about not only the plants, the insects, they teach you many things. So at the end of it, they love the rainforest so much that they donated about $30,000 to plant another 100 trees. This project was presented at the World Congress, and the chairman of the World Congress was a chap from Brazil. And he told me that, wow, this is a very good study. He told me, do you know that the rainforest in Brazil, called the Amazon rainforest, is about apparently 30,000 times the size of Singapore. You know, the 1/3 has been burned down. You know, by the industries and all that. You know, and that's going to cause global warming. Isn't it? Warming. So Professor Tomiko said, well, you people are doing something for the health of the planet, you know, which I'm sure is very important for all of us. You know, right? And all right. And at the end of the help to the botanic gardens, they asked me to plant a tree, you know, plant a tree for them, which I went along with our grandchildren to plant a tree. Then he asked me what tree to plant. I said, how about a nutmeg tree? So the CEO asked me, why a nutmeg tree? I said, the reason why we're speaking English today is because of the nutmeg tree. Because 500 years ago, there was a pandemic in Europe called the Black Death due to the bubonic plague. Nobody knew how to treat that. So someone said, the juice of the nutmeg. 500 years ago. So you remember history? The Portuguese first came down. Vasco da Gama reached the Cape of Good Hope and sailed across the Indian Ocean. The next group was Alfonso de Albuquerque. His fleet conquered Malacca. Remember the history? In 15, Malaysians, how many Malaysians here? Ex-Malaysians. Yes. In history book, we are told in 1511, Alfonso de Albuquerque conquered Malacca. The first thing he did, within 2 weeks, he sent 2 ships to look for the Moluccas Island, where the nutmeg tree was grown, right? And after the Portuguese came the Dutch, and then the English came, right? That's why we're all in England now, right? So, but after 5 years now, more than 5 years, 6 years now, he hasn't, no fruits yet. So the CEO told me you should have planted a durian tree. So you see, a nutmeg tree is very special. There's certain kind of roots, earth and all that, then the soil, if not, it won't grow, So anyway, and I always, because of our research in the National Park for the art study, they make me a patron of the National Art Gallery, and I often bring my grandkids over there, and they like to paint in a Capel room, and then paint a picture of the rainforest. So you see the rainforest, interesting because the rainforest has deep roots, and the roots cling together. About 25 years ago, there was a tsunami at Aceh. You remember that? After the tsunami, a lot of destruction or death, the Indonesian government invited me to help out in the post-trauma, And they told me about the destruction of the city of Aceh, but they told me the mangrove swamp and the rainforest were not destroyed because they are deep roots, and the roots cling together, So I tell people in the botanic gardens, this is a metaphor for community solidarity. So if people, even your church, if people have deep roots, then they'll stick together, then they'll do things together. So somebody told me about singing in the choir here. There's a choir here, apparently. I heard, Calvin, you got SBC choir, isn't it? Yeah, you get together. And that's how it is. And one way to, although you are growing old, if you have deep roots here, people can come out to help each other, right? So this same thing happened during the pandemic. The people who did the rainforest study, they began to care for one another. Few of the professors down there in this group are widows and widowers. And sometimes their friends were doing, remember those pandemic time, COVID-19, and people are afraid to leave. So some people say, I'm going to the Vivo City, I'll buy for you some grocery, So the sense of caring, which is quite phenomenal. I must move on quickly again. Let me see what we have. Someone asked me about the Malay group. So during the pandemic, we couldn't do anything, but we said, why not we help out the people who are living and use a handphone? Because we also realized that in all these groups we have in Singapore, all the people who attend are mainly women. The men will stay at home, they can't be bothered, But we also know that the depression rate is high among elderly men, and the suicide rate is high. So we thought maybe one good way is to use and everything was moving on to digitalization of the country. How about digital mental health? We gave them a handphone, and every week we'll send them a message on how to prevent hypertension, diabetes control, what kind of activities you have. So this is something interesting. And I remember one of my friends said, okay, I will donate to you. Someone from Malaysia, from Kampa, working here, He said, I only buy Huawei, I won't buy anything else. So, right. So every week they'll send a message on how to control your diet, what kind of diet. But from 1 week, they decided maybe 1 week pandemic, they have nothing to do. So they send every day, Even now it's 6 years has passed already. Even this morning, the same group will send each other, in the morning, Assalamualaikum, then they tell you, today what's happening. It's wonderful. So we track the mental health of these people, and it's a wonderful way, isn't it, to able to disseminate information, improve their health. At the end of the pandemic, they came together, Botanic Gardens, and they began to get together. After about 3 months, we told them, besides we giving you all the time information, can you do something for your mosque? Can you be a volunteer in the mosque to clean up the library or serve, Because you cannot just be giving all the time, isn't it? Yeah? I'm sure the church will know that, Besides just giving, can we get something back from people, So there's a response, Some of you who are in the 60s, like our orthopedic surgeon, I'm sure you, 60s, the rock group at that time was the Beatles, Yeah. The Beatles, the last record of the Beatles it's called Abbey Road. You remember that? And the last song is called The End. And the last line of The End, written by them, it says, "The love you take is equal to the love you make." So the Beatles, the young fellows, and right. Yeah, if you want to have more love in your country, your family, make sure you make love, you care for your people. So same way, besides just taking, can you give back to the community? So that's something that we are very happy about. And so finally, I think for what we worry about in Singapore, aging in place, firstly, you must make sure that the family bond is there. So we conducted a study called Community Health and Intergenerational Study. This acronym was actually the idea of the late Mrs. Teo Chee Hee, and she passed away during the pandemic, and she was helping us in about the family. Can the family come together? Can we do a study how to bond the family? So in this picture, you see this is our granddaughter talking to Margaret Chew. Margaret Chew is the president of the YWCA, right? And talking about computers and all that. So can you bond the people together? Can we have more volunteers to come and help out? So also, if someone were to have a mild depression and anxiety, how do you help them out? To get an appointment to NUH or other hospitals is about 4 or 5 months, or if someone's depressed. Can we train people in this room, for example? I'm sure we can get Calvin, Richard, all people can be, or David, Arthur, all can be, provide some first aid. Someone who has a mild depression, can we help them out? Then they know who to refer to when they have more severe depression. So how we can teach them. So this is what the work of a lady called Professor Shifali, who is now the director of the Mind Science Center. And this comes up from a program called Brief Integrative Psychological Therapy, which we hope can also be introduced to people, a simple technique on how to provide psychological first aid. And this is the work of 4 or 5 people in the university. Professor Chong Pak Yen, also from Barker Road, he passed away from Pak Yen, Go Li Gan, Francis Woon and myself. What kind of technique we can help people, Any psychologist here or a social worker? All right, nobody here. All right. Whenever we ask them, they'll say, cognitive behavior therapy, dialectical behavior therapy. I got a GP friend whose wife is a psychologist. She asked her wife, how do you treat depression? Cognitive behavior therapy, CBT. What about anxiety? CBT. They say, what do you, one trick horse, Is there any other? Here, things like mindfulness, we've done research, a good technique of relaxation, and also what is relevant to our culture, what is relevant to this culture. I was trained in England in dynamic psychotherapy, Freudian therapy, not very appropriate for this culture here, isn't it? So what is more appropriate? And also something on healthy lifestyle. So this is the different techniques of how we can improve on our techniques of providing care for people. It's not just a Freudian or cognitive therapy. So whatever we do, it must something be relevant and from the rich experience of people here that you can introduce it for your community. So I remember some years ago, I was asked to write an editorial for the British Journal, and I mentioned that The marketplace of ideas should not merely be sacrosanct to research centers in London or New York and ignoring the rich experience of clinicians from Kathmandu or Batu Pahat. This is the first time that my hometown in Malaysia, Batu Pahat, is mentioned in an international scientific journal. Batu Pahat, as some of you know, better known for its nightclubs, bars, right? Well, I hope it restores some respectability to this town. So I want to thank the various people involved, and that is Mrs. Teo Chee Hian here will pass on. So the present chairman of the Mind Science Center is Mr. Abdullah Tamuji, our former Speaker of Parliament, and there is our strong supporter, David, and Hong Hai from NTU. And all this in a book called The Colors of Aging. So as the title of this lecture, good news, aging is good news, all right? So I remember this was sent to London for review, and the reviewer from London mentioned that this book should be read by Bill Gates. Because Bill Gates told the world before the pandemic that he'll give $100 million to whoever can find a drug for the prevention of dementia. So the reviewer said you can never find a drug to prevent dementia. You should read this book from Singapore. So I want to, growing old, it's a privilege denied to many. So if you want to start, how to start it? So it's time for you to wake up now to help your group. All right? Are you all ready? All right. Okay. There must be institutional support. Your church must support you, or else it's very difficult. Because you need many things. All right. If there's no support, then you find that in terms of staff, in terms of gathering resources, it can be extremely difficult. All right. I also remember when in 1984, I was given a scholarship to Harvard University to do geriatrics, psychiatry. And before I went, I had a coffee with a friend of mine, who was a surgeon. And he told me, I heard this, that you're going to America. I said, yes. What are you going to do in America? I went, well, do something on aging. Aging? I said, I'm told that you're a child psychiatrist. Well, in England, I was trained as a child psychiatrist in Oxford, So why do you stick on the child? There's nobody in Singapore doing aging in 1984, So he said, you have no support from institution, And so he was right, but I thought in terms of research, you must think of things ahead of you, So when you start early, then it's easier, no typing. But difficult in the beginning was extremely difficult. There was no grant, no money given. But for you, when you start a center like this, your small church or few of you come together, that'll be wonderful. Secondly, a core group of people who are enthusiastic. You get a group of friends, or maybe a few of your friends who are in the same choir, can come together and form a core group. Or I mentioned the people who are having Bible study group. A core group of people can start off that. And you come for training in NUS, so we'll train you. So we have regular training over weekends, over 5 to 6 weeks to empower you some techniques, But also during the training, you meet other people. You meet a lot of friends, right? And also a space in your church. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of spaces around here. A small space for you to have lectures, talks, but also other spaces, if necessary, if you need gardening or singing. And you got to advertise your program to other people in your church members. So beginning when we first started the research in Jurong, it was called dementia prevention. Nobody want to come, people are frightened. And so Mrs. Teo Chee Hian was very good. They said, why don't we change to age well every day? Something really awesome. So it's picked up now, awesome. So people want to be something more positive. All right, and then participants, if you take around 30, 30 people, age group, gender, education, right. When we first started the program, it was people above 60 years, So when we sent the research from Jurong study first started in Asia to the British Journal. The top journal in England was Lancet. The editor said, doing dementia prevention at 60 years is too late. So I told the editor, I agree with you, must agree with editor because you get it published. I'm glad you published. The next time you embark on a study earlier, 40 years old. So their lifestyle start from very early, 40 years old. So in fact, we're planning on something. If we were to get the young people to start, maybe in the university or colleges, maybe at 20 years, and we follow them up for at least 50, 60 years, the whole thing will change. The whole landscape will change, their lives, they help them out, Because Singapore, we don't have much natural resources, and what we have is just the human resource, all right? All right, it's the human capital which is most important. Can we help them out? So somebody was talking to me about maybe at early age, can we sort of persuade them or talk to them about not about smoking? So I'm very glad now, that we, in the medical schools, none of the medical students smoke. At one time, they were all smoking, very trendy. I'm sure during your time in Australia, although I have an orthopedic friend, students smoke, even lecturers smoke, and they give lecture, You remember going to cinema, the cinema full of smoke, But now I'm glad you go up there, so glad, and it's so good. So some changes can be done, So these are called more behavioral changes. It's like Dr. William Wan was the chairman of the kindness movement, and I told him, William, you talk about, he was mentioning to people in the newspaper about, well, we must return our tray from a hawker center, food court, Nobody followed him. Be kind to the person who's wheeling around. Nobody, until the government said, if you don't put a tray up there, fine you. Fine, finish. All right, everybody follow, right. It's strange because if you go to McDonald's, you return, isn't it? But hawker center, strange. So it's more difficult now instead of values. Can you change human values? Caring for your neighbors, caring for someone living alone, So these are issues that we can think about. All right? And then the program of health education, very important. Talk to them about hypertension, diabetes, diet. Always be proud of a Singapore diet, and also falls prevention. The other day, a friend, the late Mr. Liu Tiger, had a fall, and after the fall, he became unwell. All right. And so exercise, you can do whatever exercise, just walking be good. We did Tai Chi for our research because we want to make it something very elegant so that the researchers get attracted. Wow, Tai Chi, wow, something more Asian, right? Mindfulness. And so when you, as a researcher, you must able to attract the attention of the editor. I used to be editor-in-chief of also Asian journal. It doesn't attract me, I'll just reject. Sometimes you feel sad, Person spent 3 years, 5 years doing PhD, and you're going to reject the paper. That's all sad. So you must do something that people attract people, relevance. Right? And then you have music. I'm sure it's very strong. Art and gardening. Okay. So you see something from Corinthians. Even though our outward man is perishing, yet the inward man is being renewed day by day. That's my grandmother, says, oh, Teochews, we are very proud of our grandmothers. And it's always very staunch Christians, go do a lot of things for the church. And if you have this kind of group, it provides a social support for you. Your friends will come. So that the Malay group, whenever I go to attend their meeting, my goodness, they'll come out with their mee goreng, nasi lemak. They enjoy it, and and it's so colorful. They enjoy doing it, and they spend the whole evening doing it, and the children are so happy. It focuses their mind. And also, you can learn new things. So every time you come to university for the training, we tell you new things. You're part of our group. Any new research, we'll tell you. Then you keep on learning new things, right? And of course, it gives physical, mental, and your spiritual health, right? All right. But then the cost of it, some people say, wow, problem of costing. Well, of course, the running cost, maybe in the refreshment. You need some refreshment, and church and friends can provide that kind of thing. And you need some volunteers, because volunteers fatigue is quite common. We have a lot of centers, some they die off because the volunteers are very tired, So you must have a group of people who can come, some to rest. And then they go for outings. Sometimes, like the Malay group, they'll go to the botanic gardens by the bay, and sometimes people will provide them the kind of money for that. And also, if the church has one staff who designate for that, it's easier. You can coordinate all the activities. All right. I'm very important of a leader, a team leader who can help you out to drive the force. And you see in Singapore, when I presented this to the People Association, well, some of the member of parliament said, oh, but we have it in our Jalan Besar or somewhere. So I told them that, can you find out what happened after 1 year? In fact, Mr. Lim Boon Heng told him, if you drop in at the day center, aging center, you find that on the notice board, there is line dancing today or Tai Chi exercise. But you drop in on a particular day, there's nobody down there. On the program, there's something, but nobody. But they say when Prime Minister Lawrence Wong is coming tomorrow, wow, they'll bust thousands of people up, and it's good for television, wow. But when it's not there, nobody cares. Yeah. So the outcome is very important. So I told them that this, in the programs we have, is based on the research, evidence-based, in a structured program, and outcome is measurable. And it's a non-drug approach. That's what the World Health is very happy about. There are 3 centers in the world doing dementia research: Singapore, Finland, and Paris. And it's always good to have friendly competition. But the people in Finland and Paris told me that the volunteers will be paid. You're not paid, nobody can help you out. In Singapore, it's different. I'm very glad there are people who volunteer to come down to help. And so it's going on now. So after we have 5 years follow-up study, I think Finland only 2 years then. So I think something that we can inculcate in people a sense of care, belonging to a group, volunteerism. Yeah. So these are things that we think about. But we also know that the volunteers can get burnt out. We could be very careful. We've done studies on burnt out also. And remember this line from Exodus, on fire, but did not burn up. But also burnt out, very common. You see, healthcare workers, 70% burnt out. And teachers also a lot. Volunteers have also got a lot. Sorry. So at the end of it, we also have some teaching on how to prevent burnt out. And the last slide, the 7 habits of mental resilience. So you see, training, education, empower you with information, help you understand about yourself. Like now you know that if you have hypertension or diabetes, then you know how to stabilize it, then you are no longer at risk. And also we realize that it's good to have a mentor, someone to guide you. So if people belong to this group, they belong to part of this bigger group, the university people can help to mentor this group to make sure you're okay. And also have social capital, your friends and all that you have, and this is what the program is all about. And for each of us, having a quiet time, think about what you're doing, refresh, recharge, right? And also exercise, diet, and make sure you have enough sleep. This picture was taken some years ago, sometime in 1984, 85, about 34, 5 years ago. I was walking in the botanic gardens at the crack of dawn, because at that time, the night before that, on Friday evening, the Dean of Medicine rang me and said, we want to appoint you the head of Department of Psychiatry in university. I said, oh, hold on, Dean, I actually got a job in Australia, I said, wow, how can you go to Australia? Then I said, well, I've got a job down there, be a consultant, go down there. But then I went for a long walk, think about it, reflect on it. Then I remember that evening, talked to my wife. The wife said, no, we are tired. We left England. I was consultant, the child psychiatrist in England. But my wife said, oh, the weather is terrible here. It's wet and it's raining every day. Must come back to Singapore. So my wife said, no, not Australia anymore. You better stay back here. So after a long walk to Botanic Gardens, I thought, okay, I'll stay back here. And I'm glad I make the right decision. If I go to Australia, I'll miss my friend like Kelvin and Arthur. Yeah. So it's life. You make a decision, and I'm sure the good Lord help me in my career and all that. In fact, my daughter asked me, Dad, any regrets? She was born in England, came to Singapore when she was 1 year old, Now she's a consultant at KK Hospital. I said, no regrets, looking back, And I think we give back as much to the community as the Lord helped us in our career, So I'm going to stop now. Question time. I know there are about half an hour of question time, all of you.